Unseen strength. When hooligans tried to humiliate her, what they discovered transformed everything. Jessica Harris stood at the fringes of the annual barbecue, observing the scene with a mixture of weariness and hope. Each year, this gathering painted a facade of joy over the small Midwestern town. But today, it felt heavy with the weight of her unfulfilled dreams. As a devoted single mother to her spirited 5-year-old daughter and a part-time librarian, every glance towards the long tables filled with laughter reminded her of the gulf between expectation and reality. Despite her efforts to balance mothering and her ongoing pursuit of a research career, a dream that seemed more like a distant glimmer, she felt the heat of judgmental eyes. Suddenly, laughter erupted somewhere to her left, sharp and mocking. Confused, Jessica turned and felt a jolt of dread as she recognized the source, an arrogant group of local hooligans. Their faces twisted with mirth, their taunts aimed squarely at her. "Look at Jess, the librarian who thinks she's better than everyone 'cause she reads," one shouted, followed by a chorus of jeering laughter. Jessica's stomach churned, her heart racing, as insecurity clawed at her self-esteem. In an instant, all her aspirations felt trivial and embarrassing. A secret shame she struggled to acknowledge. She thought about all the late nights spent poring over endless textbooks, the whispered doubts from family, the self-inflicted burden of her ambitions. What was it really that she was trying to prove? She appeared vulnerable, open to attack. Her mind raced, questioning if the dream of research was worth the cost of this degradation. Was she a muddle of foolish aspirations, a single mother lost in a fantasy? The mocking laughter twisted inside her. She hesitated, as if trapped in a web of unwelcome insecurities. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. Why do I care what they think? She whispered under her breath. The moment stretched painfully, yet, within this chaos, an ember ignited, a fierce determination masked beneath layers of doubt and pain. Just as humiliation threatened to consume her, she felt the unexpected presence of Mr. Lawson, the wise, elderly retired professor who had always encouraged her intellectual pursuits. He stepped forward, his eyes sharp with understanding, instantly shifting the tide. "Jessica, you have a voice. Don't let them silence you," he said. And in that moment, Jessica felt a spark of resolve. Defiance surged. She was more than what they laughed at. Her ambition was worth defending. Yet as she left the barbecue, still shaking from the encounter, the fear of family disappointment clawed at her again, wrapping around her like chains. Each late night, every page of her research left her grappling with gnawing self-doubt, leaving her just one step away from wanting to concede. Tomorrow, she'd be presenting her work at the academic conference, the kind of platform she had only ever dreamt of. But inside, uncertainty washed over her. What if they returned, lurking in the shadows, ready to do damage again? Would they shatter her again, turn her ambition into yet another joke? She clenched the pages of her research tightly, as if they alone could shield her from the looming threat. Standing at the brink of an opportunity, Jessica faced a choice: to rise above the cruel whispers or become an unwilling victim of her own shame. The air felt thick, heavy with her unresolved conflict as she prepared for the final presentation. As self-doubt began to creep back in with relentless persistence, she took a deep breath, not knowing if she had summoned the strength of transformation or if she would let the echoes of her past haunt her once more. As the first rays of dawn filtered through the curtains, Jessica rose with a sense of unspeakable weight pressing on her chest. Today marked a pivotal moment in her journey, yet vulnerability felt overwhelming. The echo of laughter from last night still haunted her mind, swirling in a chaotic dance with her ambitions. Shaking off the remnants of doubt, she glanced at her daughter, Lily, still fast asleep, blissfully unaware of her mother's struggles. The sight of her innocent face ignited something within Jessica, a fierce maternal instinct that propelled her forward. She quietly prepared breakfast, each action infused with renewed intensity. Every egg cracked, every slice of toast turned, became a quiet affirmation of her resolve to shatter the chains of fear binding her. Arriving at the conference venue, Jessica felt the atmosphere hum with anticipation, each step heavier than the last. The walls adorned with screens displaying various research topics felt intimidating. The brilliance of her peers weighed down her hopeful spirit. She could almost hear the echoes of the hooligans from the night before taunting her, challenging her intellect and worth. Yet, as she approached her designated room, something shifted. A sense of purpose surged. She wasn't just a librarian. She was a knowledge seeker, a mother who dared to dream. Silently, she rehearsed the opening lines of her presentation, each word a shield against self-doubt. But would they resonate? Would her audience see the passion that ignited her work? Once inside, hazards sprouted. Unexpected hurdles. Her mentor, Professor Lawson, cornered her with urgent words. Remember your worth, Jessica. Any moment of hesitation will be seized by those who don't understand your brilliance. His unequivocal faith felt like a spark in dry tinder, igniting a quick flame of confidence. She nodded, albeit feebly, still wrestling with the precarious balancing act of self-belief. When her turn arrived, she adjusted her glasses, inhaling deeply before stepping to the podium. The room dimmed as the spotlight revealed her anxious frame. She glanced at the audience, scanning for a familiar face, any sign of encouragement that would catch her eye. Instead, she saw a sea of unyielding gazes, analytical and wary. Unbeknownst to them, she wrestled with invisible chains, doubting her place among the elite. Yet, as she launched into her material, the contents flowed freely, liberating thoughts transformed into well-crafted sentences. The voice she had feared would tremble instead resonated with strength. As she detailed her research findings, the initial trepidation yielded to enthusiasm, fueling her spirit. Her passion was infectious. A few nods in the audience became buoyant lifelines, renewing her energy. Confusion began to blossom among her listeners. Their stares shifted. Skepticism transformed into curiosity. For the first time, rather than hear derision, she sensed engagement. Then, right in the midst of her revelations, a familiar face appeared in the rear of the room, the source of her worst fears. One of the hooligans had followed her, a smirk plastered on his lips. The sight shattered her composure momentarily. Would they find humor in her ambitions once again? In that fleeting instant of vulnerability, something clicked. The accusations of ineptitude no longer anchored her. Instead, they fueled her determination to unmask them. With unwavering clarity, she continued her presentation, mind fully engaged, discarding thoughts of intimidation. Each word became not just a defense of her work, but a declaration of her purpose. She would not be silenced. The presentation concluded with an overwhelming round of applause. She felt a blend of exhilaration and disbelief. Recognition cascaded over her, erasing remnants of the humiliation she had braced herself against. A turn of the tide had begun, and for the first time, Jessica embraced the notion that perhaps she was in control of her own narrative. But as the accolades flooded in, she locked eyes with the hooligan once more. He wasn't laughing now. In fact, his expression morphed from amusement to something resembling respect. What did this shift mean? Jessica's heart raced, teetering on the brink of a revelation. If a single moment could alter perceptions, then what else was still waiting to be unveiled in her journey? The reckoning had scarcely begun, and with it, she could not help but wonder, was the fight for her ambitions just starting? Jessica stepped off the podium, the roar of applause still echoing in her ears, but her mind raced faster than her heart. While others celebrated her success, she felt an odd tension, laced with anticipation. The confrontation with her past, embodied in the hooligan, had stirred a realization she couldn't quite define. She had called upon an inner strength she was unaware she possessed, and now she needed to understand its implications. As she made her way through the throngs of attendees, her thoughts churned relentlessly. Suddenly, her previous identity as just a librarian felt utterly inadequate compared to the person she had become on stage. The thrill of having her work recognized intertwined with a sense of fear, simmering just beneath the surface. She spotted Professor Lawson waiting to congratulate her. He looked pleased, his eyes sparkling with the conviction he always had in her potential. "Jessica, you were remarkable," he beamed, clasping her shoulder. "That was not just a presentation, it was a declaration. You've turned the tides in your favor." "Thank you, Professor," she replied, trying to smile, but her mind drifted back to the intimidating figure she had seen earlier. "But what happens now? Was it enough?" "It's merely the beginning," he replied, sensing her unease. "You've shown them your intellect. Now it's about sustaining that momentum. The real challenge lies in the follow-up, seizing the opportunities that come after this." His words lingered in her mind like an uninvited guest. What opportunities were to be unveiled? And how could she maintain this newfound energy against the heavy expectations she felt? The exhilaration she'd felt on stage was about to be tested by the crash of reality. Deciding to gather herself, Jessica wandered into a quieter hallway, seeking solace. The walls adorned with accolades of brilliant minds mirrored her own fragmented thoughts. She had confronted the hooligan's judgment and conquered it, but now she faced the specter of her own insecurities and doubts. Would her past mistakes rise again to haunt her in the pursuit of progress? Taking a breath, she closed her eyes and recalled the faces of those who had shown her kindness, Lily's smile, the recognitions in her audience, and Professor Lawson's warmth. A faint shimmer of confidence grew within her, fueled by the clarity of purpose she had discovered moments earlier. Jessica was not merely a participant in this field. She was an evolving force, ready to claim her space among the giants. Returning to the main hall, her strides became determined. The faculty lounge buzzed with chatter, but she was drawn to a solitary table where attendees exchanged their thoughts on her talk. Could she mingle among them? Would they accept her into their realm, or would they merely humor her transient success? Swallowing hard, she joined the cluster of colleagues, introducing herself to those scrutinizing her work, engaging in vibrant discussions about their own findings. With each conversation, she felt the tension ease. It was not just her research that sparked interest, but also the stories, the lessons woven into her journey. Yet, amidst the camaraderie, one voice echoed back in her mind her former bullies. Was this fleeting recognition going to withstand scrutiny? As if reading her thoughts, one member asked pointedly, "How do you think you'll handle critique moving forward, especially after today?" Jessica's heart pounded. That question held profound weight. It beckoned her to grapple with the shadows of doubt. How indeed? Would she fall into the trap of self-doubt again, or would she forge ahead with resilience? Motivated by the realization of this moment's significance, she replied, "I'll embrace it. Critique is not a weapon, it's a guide. If I'm strong enough to stand in the light now, I can certainly withstand the shadows." As murmurs of agreement filled the air, Jessica felt a new resolve settle into her core. She was no longer just a participant but also an advocate for her voice and her story. Yet, in the corner of her eye, she noticed the hooligan, lingering just outside, exchanging words with another attendee. What did he intend to do now that the tables had turned? Was he merely observing, or was there another confrontation yet to come? Jessica's pulse quickened, sensing the tension that loomed in the air, promising another reckoning was on the horizon. How would she face him this time? Would she rise even higher, or would she stumble beneath the weight of her past? Jessica's breath hitched as she caught sight of the hooligan again, his presence a storm brewing on the outskirts of her newfound confidence. The air around her thickened with a familiar unease, shifting from excitement to a reminder of vulnerability. The discussions around her faded into a distant hum as she pressed her lips together, mentally inventorying her options. He wasn't just an echo from her past anymore. He was a living challenge standing in her present. Her gut tightened, urging her to either stand her ground or retreat into the comfort of anonymity. She opted for the former, reminding herself that she had already stared down the embodiment of her fears once that day. Could she do it again, this time with the validation of her recent success propelling her forward. "What's wrong, Jess? You look like you've just seen a ghost." A voice pulled her back into the moment, Professor Lawson's reassuring presence lacing comfort into the chilled air. "Just thinking," she replied, forcing a smile while subtly gesturing toward the group gathering near the door where the hooligan stood. His lips curled into a taunting grin. "Don't let him faze you. You've got something to offer now." "Let them see it," he encouraged, his belief in her a kind of buoy that lifted her spirits. "I'm trying," she admitted, the conflict between her growing clarity and lingering doubt making her voice tremble. Yet grounding herself deeply, she sought the reservoir of strength she had unearthed earlier, and felt the flicker of resolve ignite. "Mingle. Your achievement is a conversation starter. Plus, you're not shy about your research, right?" Professor Lawson winked playfully. Jessica nodded, her heart racing anew, fueled by a blend of anxiety and determination. She took a step toward the clustered group, each footfall heavy yet purposeful. What if they turned, eyes wide in disbelief? What if the hooliganess laughter echoed again, shadowing her advancement? The mental games began, and for an instant, she fought the urge to slide back into obscurity, into the silence of familiarity. "Excuse me," she said, finding herself directly in front of the group, adrenaline coursing through her, adding an edge to her voice she hadn't anticipated. "I hope it's all right if I join the discussion. I was just intrigued by what everyone has been sharing about their research." The air shifted. Curious glances met her, and for a moment, she felt invisible. Was it disappointment she saw on their faces? But she pushed on, eager to harness this moment, aware they might feel compelled to scrutinize her performance on stage. "So, Jessica, your insights are gaining quite the attention. How's it feel, going from a quiet library to spotlight?" One attendee asked, and another nodded, awaiting her response. Taking a deep breath, she reclaimed her earlier confidence. "It's exhilarating, but it also comes with a weight of expectation. However, I believe it's essential to handle both praise and critique responsibly. They're not mutually exclusive. They each help shape our path. Wouldn't you agree?" Nods and murmurs of agreement met her statement, but in the periphery, the hooliganess laughter pierced like a dagger. It wormed its way into her thoughts, trying to dismantle her words. "Who do you think you are?" It echoed ominously in her mind. But she stood firm, anchoring herself in the validation that rippled from her recent triumph. What a challenge it is to balance this newfound exposure with the shadows of our doubts. She continued, determined to turn the tables. "I think the secret lies in embracing our insecurities as we rise, rather than allowing them to hold us down." Even as her own words stirred confidence, a foreboding presence remained. The hooligan now sauntered closer, a predator-esque gaze assessing its prey. Was this all just a facade to bolster her strength while her insecurities raged beneath the surface? "Strength is often found when courage meets critique," she announced, amplifying her voice, willing him to hear. "I've learned not to shy away from it. I will confront it head-on, no matter what it may look like." The air froze for a heartbeat, the tension thick enough to slice. Here stood Jessica, no longer a librarian in the shadows, but a warrior in her own right, her words fervent defiance against the looming threat that had once diminished her spirit. The hooligan smirked slightly, and, with that flicker of recognition, her heart raced not in fear but in possibility. What endowed confidence compelled her to face him now? She hadn't completely unraveled it yet, but the revelation hung palpably in the air. She needed to confront the shadow of her past to step into the full light of her present. Yet, as the group began to drift back into other conversations, she couldn't shake the feeling of unfinished business. The hooliganess smirk transformed. It morphed into something far more sinister, an invitation to embark on a tangled dance of confrontation. What was his endgame? And would she find the strength to dismantle the narrative he hoped to reignite? Jessica held her ground, the hulking figure of the hooligan looming like a thundercloud overhead. The words she had just spoken echoed within her, a lifeline dragging her away from the quicksand of doubt. Ignoring the tightening in her chest, She turned her focus back to the conversation. She had to prove that this was more than just a fleeting moment of courage. She needed to embolden herself further. Your perspective on blending criticism with appreciation is refreshing. Someone chimed in, breaking the apprehensive air that hung around her. It's not easy for many of us to navigate that duality. His sincerity caused a flicker of warmth to wash over her, but just as quickly, the hooliganess gaze pinched her confidence back down, reminding her that validation was still precarious. Thank you. It's a continuous journey. Really, she replied, resisting the urge to glance back at him. Each challenge I've faced has shaped my understanding of these dynamics. After all, change happens in the midst of discomfort. The group nodded, and she could sense their curiosity deepening. The thread between her internal doubt and external perception began untangling. Could she weaponize her insecurities into something productive? Yet, the hooligan shifted closer, his smirk becoming ever more insistent, tightening the atmosphere with unyielding judgment. He leaned in toward her, and she fought the urge to turn away. His voice murmured, laced with mockery. You really think you can handle all this attention? One slip up and you're back to being invisible just like before. His words struck a chord, the echoes of past failures rising like ominous shadows. For a brief moment she almost faltered. But the fleeting flicker of doubt was met with the accumulating strength she had built throughout the day. She focused inward, her mind racing to counterattack, diverting the energy that would have eaten away at her resolve. On the contrary, it's the very struggles that have shaped me, she articulated slowly, the intensity of her conviction rising. Being invisible taught me resilience. You may not understand that, but I am proud of where I've come from. It serves as my foundation. Behind her words, she felt something shift. The group's cornered whispers reflected her growing assertiveness, and maybe even a lingering respect. She had started a dialogue, disrupting the narrative that once felt entrenched, and here she was, engaged in a counter-battle of wills. Do you truly believe that? The hooligan pressed. His question, draped in sarcasm, felt more like a challenge than a query. You think a few accolades will cover the past? Jessica clenched her fists slightly, battlefield thoughts rushing through her. The past was not something to be lain to rest under a blanket of false triumph. It was a relentless student asking for acknowledgement, growth, and courage. It's not about burying my past. It's about using it as fuel. Lessons learned, mistakes embraced. Strength isn't about denying vulnerability. It's about confronting it head-on. The tension swirled, tangible and thick, as she spoke. The hooliganess posture seemed to shift. Uncertainty flickered briefly within his eyes, as if her unwavering altercation had shaken something loose. There was power in her repartee, and she could feel it wrapping around her, both delicate and fierce. But just as clarity began to emerge, his smirk returned, this time morphing into an unsettling sneer. Let us see how long that strength lasts when the heat gets turned up. You might want to watch your back. Every instinct screamed to recoil, to withdraw. Yet Jessica recognized that his words were an attempt to trigger her insecurities once more. She wouldn't falter. I'll take my chances, she retorted, unyielding. Every time I've faced a trial has only made me stronger. I won't let shadows dictate my path. As she spoke, there was a dawning realization. She no longer needed to overcome everything for herself alone. Each engagement, failure or triumph, was an exploration of her growth. She was no longer locked in silence. These confrontations were a testament to her ongoing evolution. But just as she thought she had outplayed the tension at hand, the hooligan leaned further in. It appears our little encounter is just getting started. You'll find that vulnerability can be a beast. The looming threat of future confrontations danced in her vision, awakening an unsettling sense of urgency. Just how far would he go? And what kind of strength did she need to tap into next? Something within her stirred as she contemplated this. The storm was far from over, and she needed to brace herself for the gusts ahead. Jessica exhaled slowly, the pressure surrounding her growing heavier as the hooliganess words clung to the air like smoke. He had struck a nerve, but in that moment, as her resolve crystallized, She realized this unsettling exchange was not just an obstacle. It was a gateway to her growth. And it was a lesson that would resonate beyond this encounter. The group around her had shifted from passive observers to active participants, each face reflecting varying shades of interest, apprehension, or judgment. She sensed their attention hanging on the brink of a revelation, waiting for her next move. This was the spotlight she had once dreaded. Yet now it ignited a flicker of determination deep inside her. They were not just witnesses. They were fellow travelers on a journey of self-assessment. As her heartbeat steadied, she shifted her focus inward. She thought about the resilience she had built through countless struggles, each one an invisible thread weaving a stronger tapestry of her identity. "You're right about one thing," she began, her voice steady, laced with newfound clarity. "Vulnerability can feel like a beast, but it can also be the catalyst for real power. It's not something to hide from. It's to be embraced. I've dropped the facade. I'm here, fully present, for better or worse." Her words hung in the air, a bridge between her past and her present. As she spoke, the hooliganess expression shifted ever so slightly, contempt giving way to inquisitive scrutiny. The unexpected vulnerability disarmed him, but she was acutely aware that there was still a battle to be fought. Would he concede, or push the envelope even further? The tension maintained its electric charge. "I can see how deeply you want to believe that," he replied, his voice now lacking the harshness it had moments ago. "But when push comes to shove, can you really stand on your own? What happens when it's not easy?" A knot twisted in Jessica's stomach. The question struck her like a blow. She had been standing tall, fortified by her experiences, but self-doubt still threatened to cast shadows. The thought of personal failure was a familiar ghost, ever lurking. Yet, as she met his gaze, something profound clicked into place. This wasn't about showing him her strength. This was about proving it to herself. "I've already faced the impossible," she responded, her tone firm and unwavering. "I've come back from the abyss, time and time again, with lessons etched into my core. It's those moments of darkness that illuminate what I'm truly capable of. I won't shy away from the challenges ahead. I'll face them and I'll grow stronger." The hush around her felt charged with collective breathlessness. With that admission, she felt a shift not only within herself but resonating among the listeners. She saw a few nods, whispers of encouragement spreading like ripples in water. This wasn't merely her battle anymore. It was a community of shared vulnerabilities. In confronting her fears, she had invited others to reflect on their own. Energized by her newfound clarity, she gestured lightly, as if inviting the group into her world. "Every setback has been a lesson, and every lesson has made me who I am today. The past is no longer a chain. It's a testament to resilience. How we interpret our struggles can be our greatest power." Her words sparked something deeper within the onlookers, igniting conversations about their perceptions of strength and vulnerability. For the first time, she felt the solidarity of shared experience. But still, the hooligan lingered like an ominous presence. As his eyes darkened, she sensed the challenge was far from over. "So what's your plan, brave one?" he taunted, voice lowered but more piercing than before. "When the real test comes, will you still be ready to face the beast?" Jessica took a breath, feeling the weight of his provocation. He was cornered, but still dangerous. The assertion of her strength would soon be put to a harsher test. Within her, a sense of alertness emerged, relentlessly pushing her to question her readiness. What lay ahead would define not just her resilience but her identity. "Bring it on," she boldly proclaimed, an unyielding strength surging through her veins. "I'll show you just how fierce vulnerability can be." As she uttered the words, she felt a shift in the atmosphere, heavy with anticipation. The stakes had risen, and the impending trials threatened to approach rapidly. The journey to discover just how powerful vulnerability could be had only just begun, and now the true confrontation awaited. What lay ahead would not only challenge Jessica's resolve, it would delve deep into the foundations of her beliefs and force her to confront the most formidable opponent yet herself. Jessica stood at the crossroads of her own transformation, the air thick with tension and the chilling awareness that her next steps would echo far beyond the moment. She could feel the shifting dynamics within the group, their collective uncertainty urging her forward, but also highlighting her vulnerability. The hooligan's presence loomed large, a daunting reminder that confrontation was just beginning. With her heart thundering, she resolved to take command of the narrative, not just hers but the story intertwining with every individual in that circle. She glanced around and recognized faces that mirrored her journey. Each one was a living testament to hidden battles and unspoken fears. There was power in this realization, a quiet reinforcement that the communal struggle was palpable, and tonight was the catalyst. "Let us talk about this beast," she said, her voice rising to meet the challenge, as if forcing the shadows of doubt to light. "Sits heavy on all of us, doesn't it? We share this beast, a fear of failure, rejection, and our deepest insecurities." Her eyes found theirs, drawing them into her narrative. "But it can't own us. We decide what shape it takes." She noticed a few nodding in agreement, an ember igniting in a gradually expanding flame. Each individual reflection added depth to her own awakening. As she spoke, she began forming an intricate bond with her audience, each story threading into another, creating an unexpected tapestry of shared experiences. The hooligan shifted then, reeling from the unexpected turn. "What makes you think that talking will change anything?" He shot back, trying to regain his footing. "Words are just noise without action." Jessica's pulse quickened at the challenge. She could feel the weight of his doubt trying to seep back in like a malevolent mist, but it was now shunned by her burgeoning resolve. "Exactly," she shot back. "Words can pave the way for action. They're the first step. Naming our fears disarms them, and acknowledging our struggles gives us the power to act." A flicker of surprise crossed his face, and for a brief moment, she saw clarity break through his antagonism. It was a reminder that even the toughest exteriors might conceal insecurities. Without skipping a beat, she pressed on, determined to stake her claim. "Let us not just challenge the beast. Let us start crafting our own narratives. We should ask ourselves, what do we do when the challenges come, when the tide turns against us?" As she spoke, she felt clarity wrapping around her heart like armor. We harness the power of our vulnerability. We become resilient. It's not about being fearless. It's about embracing our fears and choosing to act despite them. The shift in energy was palpable, a stirring of minds that put Jessica at the center of transformation. The hooligan watched her, a mixture of admiration and uncertainty flickering in the depths of his expression. It was an opening, a subtle, promising crack in the wall he had forged around himself. "Maybe," he muttered, almost to himself, as he searched for footing in this discourse he hadn't anticipated. Jessica felt a rush of energy coursing through her, invigorated by the emergence of unexpected allies. But there remained a storm brewing inside her. Could she truly ignite change? Was this moment a flash in the pan? Or was she on the brink of something profoundly transformative? "Let me show you just how formidable this vulnerability can be," she promised, feeling the collective breath of the group align with her own. It was more than a declaration. It was a pledge to herself and those around her. As she stepped closer to the hooligan, the final battle loomed ever nearer. Her conviction blossomed, battling against slips of apprehension, while a bubbling anticipation surged within her. "Tomorrow," she said decisively, "we'll meet here again. Let us come prepared to share not only our fears but the steps we'll take to overcome them. I invite you to join me on this journey. Let's face the beast together." And in the silence that followed, Jessica felt the pulse of possibility. Just what shape this confrontation would take became tantalizingly clear, and yet so uncertain. Now she faced the most daunting task yet, confronting the hidden facets of herself, the depths of her own fears, and the unexpected allies who might accompany her on this journey. Would she solidify her strength, or would it slip through her fingers? The real test awaited. Jessica awoke the next morning with an unsettling mixture of excitement and dread swirling through her mind. The sun spilled through her curtains, illuminating the space she had carved out for herself in a world that often felt chaotic and unforgiving. Memories of the previous night's confrontation lingered vividly, each word still echoing in her ears, pushing her to reflect on the profound shift she had dared to initiate. She could feel the pressure building within, even stronger than before, an urgency to prepare herself, to masterfully navigate the storm that lay ahead. In an attempt to focus her thoughts, Jessica threw on her running shoes, hoping the rhythmic pounding of her feet on the pavement would ground her. As she ran, her cadence mirrored the heartbeat of her resolve. Each stride affirmed her commitment to her own growth, to the path she had begun forging not just for herself, but for those around her. By the time she returned home, a newfound clarity engulfed her. Today wasn't merely about sharing fears. It was about cultivating resilience. She needed to delve into her own vulnerabilities more deeply than ever before. In front of her bathroom mirror, she took a moment to assess her reflection. A blend of determination and apprehension stared back at her. This was the face of a woman who was more than just a participant in her journey. She was becoming a leader, sculpting her destiny. With renewed focus, she began crafting a plan for the gathering that evening. She scribbled down the stories she wanted to share, the strategies that had helped her navigate her previous pitfalls. Alongside her fears, she unearthed moments of triumphs, her small victories that often escaped her acknowledgement. They needed equal representation. As the hours ticked closer to the meeting time, Jessica felt a surge of apprehension. She knew she must share her struggles, but what if her authenticity invited ridicule rather than understanding? Overwhelmed by doubt, she paced through her apartment, contemplating her decision to even host this gathering. What if the hooligan returned, ready to exploit her honesty? Her fears laid bare like open wounds. Breathing deep, she confronted the growing anxiety, a beast in its own right. She realized that the very act of laying herself bare was a crucial step toward dismantling that fear. Today she would embrace her scars, articulate her fears, and forge a path forward not just for herself, but to encourage others to do the same. The fear of humiliation became a catalyst for empowerment. As the evening drew near, she donned her most confident attire, her outfit serving as a protective armor. She arrived at the place they had designated, heart racing as she spotted familiar faces gathering. Each individual brought their own unique history, their own burdens of doubt and fear, their need for change harmonizing with her own burgeoning courage. When the moment of truth arrived, filled with a mix of vulnerability and authority, Jessica began to share her journey. "I stand before you," she declared, "not just as a voice crying out against fear, but as a testament to the power of vulnerability. The beast is alive in each of us, and without acknowledging it, we let it dictate our lives." The faces of her peers reflected a spectrum of emotions. Some leaned in closer, drawn by her words, while others seemed hesitant, allowing their own fears to flicker just beneath the surface. Jessica pressed on, her voice unwavering. Gradually, as she spoke, stories began to cross the divide. Others responded, some with reluctance, sharing their fears while embracing the discomfort of vulnerability. Among them, the hooligan stood quiet, his presence heavy yet charged with an electricity that hinted at his readiness for change. But, as Jessica prepared to encourage them toward a solution-oriented dialogue, a wretched silence enveloped the circle. Fear was palpable, looming larger than prior. It threatened to eclipse their collective courage, but she wouldn't yield. This was the moment to confront it head-on. "Now is our chance to plan," she urged. "We must not only acknowledge our fears but arm ourselves with strategies to confront them. What is the first step one of you can take?" The question hung in the air, a delicate invitation wrapped in unyielding tension. Would they rise to the occasion, or would the beast unravel the promise of transformation? The stakes were escalating, pushing them toward a pivotal moment of revelation. As an alarming thought flashed in Jessica's mind, she realized that confronting her fears was just the beginning. It would require more than courage to usher in change. This journey had released a furious wave within her, but she knew very well the battle was just beginning. And in that moment, the room felt electric with potential. She had initiated something formidable, but with it, her mind raced with uncertainty. Would they truly be willing to join her on this journey? The challenge not only lay in their willingness to engage, but also the hurdles ahead. Would they embrace that vulnerability, or would the fear bind them tighter in silence? Jessica stood at the precipice of uncertainty, a tangible silence souring the air. Faces around her flickered between hope and hesitation, a vulnerability that was both a burden and a gift. She had expected the moment of truth to ignite a fire, but instead, the flames of fear threatened to engulf the room. She had taken her first bold step, but would others follow? As she scanned the circle, she noticed Sarah, her colleague, biting her lip as though wrestling with a secret. Jessica's heart pounded in time with her thoughts, urging her to be the catalyst someone like Sarah might need. If I can open up, so can you, she whispered internally, though outside, she maintained her fierce demeanor. Let us take a moment, she suggested, her voice softer than before yet still commanding. Each of us holds a fear that feels insurmountable. We can't move forward without acknowledging it. The room remained still, like a frozen tableau, each person grappling with their inner demons while Jessica stood, vulnerable yet unbroken, and then it happened. A tentative voice spoke up. It was Marcus, the quietest in their group, his hand trembling slightly as it rose. I'm scared of failing. I've tried so hard to change my career path, but the thought of not making it haunts me. The floodgates opened. More voices chipped at the silence, each confession unearthing buried fears. As the stories flowed, Jessica felt the weight of her own fear lift. She realized that despite their hesitation, they were no longer confined to it. Their admissions transformed the atmosphere, knitting an invisible bond around the circle. With each shared vulnerability, her apprehension receded like a tide, revealing a stronger resolve. It dawned on her that their collective openness was a powerful tool, one she must harness to forge their path. But what would be the next step? We need to transform these fears into actionable plans. Let us not only name them, let us strategize how we can face them head-on. Jessica began to list their fears on a whiteboard, creating a visual map of their collective pain points. Marcus, how can you break down your goal into smaller, manageable tasks? What's the first step toward that new direction? As he contemplated, Jessica seized the moment, posing the same question to the others, invigorating their collective energy. Whiteboard markers moved in concert with their rising confidence. Strategies began to emerge, and the weight of fear lightened with each new plan they discussed. Ideas flowed as individuals took ownership of their steps forward. Whatever may come, they would confront it together. But as they spoke, a specter loomed, watching silently from the shadows. Jessica's pulse quickened when she sensed the hooligan shift in his seat, absorbing the dynamic unfolding. Uncertainty rippled through her. What would he do? Would he disrupt this fragile unity? The sweat from her palms left prints on the marker she held tightly. Don't let fear override the breakthrough we're achieving here, she urged to the group, her voice steady but laced with urgency. Could they truly maintain this momentum? Each shared fear now felt like a stepping stone. But what if someone chose to sabotage it? Deep down, Jessica confronted a reality. She could only control her response and the atmosphere she fostered. The group continued to articulate new strategies, one after another, yet a nagging question wormed its way into her thoughts. Was the hooligan merely an observer or an impending threat? Jessica's focus shifted. How could she empower the group while being vigilant of a potential betrayal? She realized her own journey of courage went beyond facing her vulnerabilities. It now included safeguarding the trust that was dawning around her. Still, the fear of ridicule lingered, suspecting that the hooligan could easily tip the scales with a single wrong move. We are on the brink of something profound here, she urged, searching their eyes for solidarity. Let us remember this moment of collective strength, and keep pushing each other to maintain this momentum. The conversation within the room burgeoned with energy, but within it, Jessica could sense a tempest brewing. Would the hooligan remain a silent observer, or would he unveil himself in a moment that could unravel their fragile resolve? What would she be willing to face to protect the newfound strength that flickered to life? As those questions spiraled in her mind, the uncertainty weighed heavy, igniting a new concern within her. She was stepping into uncharted territory, both personally and collectively. Would she be able to harness this newfound courage and navigate whatever forces loomed ahead? The stakes felt immensely high, and her resolve was about to be tested in ways she never anticipated. Jessica stood at the precipice of change, surrounded by an atmosphere charged with newfound resolve and lingering uncertainty. The gathering had evolved, transforming from a simple sharing of fears into a collaborative crafting of plans. Yet, the moment felt precarious, a delicate balancing act of courage and anticipation as she observed her peers rallying around their shared vulnerabilities and aspirations. A sense of invigoration coursed through her. Each confession had unraveled threads of doubt that shrouded them, illuminating the possibilities awaiting beyond their fears. But lurking in the recesses of her mind was the hooligan, persistent and unpredictable, a shadow still threatening to dim their light. Taking a deep breath, Jessica steeled herself, determined to leverage the energy of collaboration. This is our moment to claim our narratives. Each step we outline is not just a strategy for growth. It's a declaration of our resilience. Her voice rang with authority, piercing through any lingering doubt among the attendees. The group erupted into discussions, brainstorming actionable steps alongside their fears. As they charted potential pathways forward, Jessica guided them gently, encouraging each person to transform their trepidation into tangible action. Remember, every strategy we create is a testament to facing the beast head-on, she reaffirmed, addressing everyone's lingering unease. However, a single gaze from the back of the room broke her train of thought. The hooligan stood there, an ominous specter amidst the rising tide of empowerment. His eyes had softened slightly, but a glint of mischief lingered. What were his intentions? Jessica refused to let anxiety fester. She needed to remain focused on her purpose, fostering an environment of growth. "Jake," she called, addressing him directly amidst the crowd. "You've been quiet. What's your perspective on all the plans we're making?" The room held its breath, tension pooling around her daring move. Surprisingly, the hooligan met her gaze, a flicker of recognition lighting up his features. Was he willing to engage? "Plans are easy to make," he replied defensively, his voice low but even. "But how can you be so sure everyone will follow through? What happens when they trip up?" Jessica felt the swell of the group's collective tension rise again. "That's exactly why we're here, to hold each other accountable. A slip-up doesn't need to define us. It's merely part of the journey. We lean on one another to rise again," she answered, conviction ringing in every word. "Strength is built through persistence, not perfection." The atmosphere began to shift. Even Jake's posture softened slightly. "You really believe that?" he challenged, crossing his arms defensively but with less hostility than before. "I know it," she countered, stepping closer. "Each of us holds the potential to reshape our narratives. Remember our fear just a moment ago? That fear is our greatest ally. It sparks honesty. By embracing our flaws, we empower our next steps." Jessica looked into the faces surrounding her, the fear receding to reveal determination. She pressed on. "We redefine failure. It's not the end. It's just a point from which we can grow." Gradually, murmurs of support enveloped her, weaving around her confidence. With each word, more attendees started nodding, visibly absorbing the shift in energy. Even Jake appeared contemplative, caught up in Jessica's fervor. "All right," he conceded, albeit begrudgingly. "Let us say you're right. Let us say weakness can be strength. We can turn this around. But how do we measure that strength when it counts?" "Great question," Jessica exclaimed, seizing the opportunity to solidify their collective shift. "We start measuring our triumphs through dialogue. We need to check in on each other, encourage reflection, form smaller accountability groups." In that moment, they moved forward, crafting plans that resonated with heart and commitment. The initial tension melted as ideas flourished in the sunlight of genuine connection. They began establishing roles within the circle. Jessica found herself naturally assuming a mentorship role, fostering an environment of trust and support where each voice mattered. As the meeting concluded, the energy in the room had transformed. Jessica could feel the shift, a testament to the bonds they'd formed through shared vulnerability, each story interwoven into a tapestry of growth. It was no longer her struggle alone. It was collaborative. Before the attendees dispersed, Jessica looked around at their faces, filled with pride and relief. "Remember," she stated, grounding herself in that moment of triumph, "vulnerability is not a weakness. It's where our true strength arises. Let us carry this forward in every step we take." As she exited the room, Jessica felt the weight of her journey manifesting into purpose. She had successfully led others into the light of their potential, confronting the shadows that had attempted to bind them. She felt a renewed conviction flow within her, a confidence anchored by genuine recognition among her peers, an acknowledgement of shared struggles guiding them forward. Among the crowd, she stole a glance at Jake, who now wore a thoughtful expression. Their eyes met, and for the briefest moment, mutual respect passed between them, a shared understanding of the challenges ahead. Perhaps her experience, her willingness to confront her vulnerabilities, had inspired even him. Jessica walked home that evening, carrying the lightness in her heart, a deep sense of fulfillment replacing the insecurity that had plagued her. She had proven to herself that growth is not linear. Embracing imperfection opened pathways to extraordinary resilience. Her fears had become her frameworks, the driving force behind the genuine evolution unfolding in her life. And there, in the quiet of the night, Jessica Harris reveled in her triumph, not just over external judgment but a victory over her inner turmoil. With a daughter sleeping peacefully in her bed and the promise of tomorrow stretching before her, she found herself revitalized, the librarian, the mother, but most importantly, a force driving her narrative forward with unwavering strength. Now it was time for a new chapter, one where she would anticipate challenges and meet them head-on with courage. This is your moment. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your voice matters. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to spread the inspiration.